Hello and welcome to the Space Between Ideas. I'm Blaine Gates. We're going to continue our conversation about how to have a business which is highly competitive, and over time you develop some competitive advantages. You run up the dominant hierarchy, and at some point you can begin to reduce the level of effort but still maintain a high level of success. Now, of course, this is the goal of every business. When we talk about inputs, there's basically these two different ideas. We got state drive, which means the level of effort and the level of success. And then we have state styles, meaning are we creating a new process? Are we optimizing a process? Or are we automating a process? These ideas come from the book, Create Crucial Insight. So there you go, that's input. Input's very, very simple. And if we look on the one side, okay, so what we're going to do is we're going to increase our input, we're going to increase our effort, we're going to increase our amount of time, we're going to increase our amount of focus, we're going to increase our amount of grit. And what happens is tick, 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 we start to move up the level of successfulness. If we're in a car, then we're going to get past the last place car, and we can get past the middle, and eventually we're going to get closer and closer to the leading position. At some point, we reach the leading position because we're highly competitive. We have a high level of effort. We have a high level of success. And then what? And then over time, what we realize is that we want to enjoy that high level of success, but reduce somewhat the level of effort. So we become a politician. No, that's not what we do. So what do we do? So, all right, so we're talking about the car, it gets to the top of the mountain, and now it's coming down the mountain, and we want to coast to some extent. I mean, at least we want to be able to automate some processes. We want to be able we want to have some kind of competitive advantage. And so now we're moving into the area of state styles. And last time we were talking about these two different types of processes. One is called tentative and one is called embedded. And if we're talking about tentative, then what we really have to do is we have to start with looking at areas that our competitors are neglecting. And then we have to look at areas where our competitors are not operating on best practices. And then we have to look at areas where our competitors are stumbling around in the dark, and we have to improve on their models. Then after that, we can move to the area of embedded, where we're trying to figure out how we can combine different kinds of work, how we can combine different types of resources, different kinds of people. Where can we combine processes to get, well, I guess you could look at it from a couple of different ways. One is, how do we get more result from the same process? And then one is, how do we get the same result from fewer processes or fewer resources being expended in that process? There you go. You have to start to think about, like, all right, so that's the philosophical, that's the engineering aspect, that's the idea. Okay, so I get it now. I mean, I'm a CEO. I've been a CEO for a long time. I know exactly what you're saying. I didn't really need you to talk about that for like the last forever. Like, where do we go from here? Now, this is the other thing that I've really been focused on lately. And this, remember, I had that discussion with you about the marketing manager. All right, we move into output. And the question is, what is the output that you're trying to achieve? And we have three different levels where we're talking about this. We start from the CEO level, meaning that the CEO is talking to the marketing manager and says, what are the goals that we're trying to achieve? What are the objectives in our objective key results? After you've identified, and the example I gave was the marketing manager basically said, okay, we want more sales, we want more views, and we want more retention. In order to, for what? So, and then in order to what? So what is that all about, actually? And the more you think about it, what we're trying to do is we're trying to create a large audience. We're trying to develop an audience. Because if we can develop a large audience that is supportive of our media brand, then we're going to be able to sell them more things. We're going to be able to create more products. We're going to be able to solve more of their problems. We're going to be able to diversify into different types of content. We're going to be able to have more budget. We're going to be able to use that money to develop the audience more and more. So the whole idea behind an education media group is to be able to understand the audience and then to continue to provide it with resources in order for it to feel that they're getting value from this media group. All right, so now but the thing is, like, that's in the future. Right now, what we need is more views and more sales and more retention. Which means what? Which means, okay, so that's it. I'm done with the CEO marketing manager meeting. Now, the marketing manager needs to go down to their office and start to figure out how much staff they need in order to achieve these objectives. And so they start to explain, like, exactly what are we trying to do? We're trying to get more, interaction? Because if we're talking about social media, then we need interaction. That's what everybody wants to see. If I'm going to trust you as an influencer, that means I need to look into your comments. I need to see people actually making comments. I need to see some discussion. I need to see some controversy. I need to see some debate. I need to see some improvement over time. I need to see how do we do that? So we need to hire a commenter. We need to hire somebody who's professional at making comments, answering comments, finding other places where they can leave comments. Next is we need to identify the trends, and we need to be very searchable. We're talking about SEO. So we need to do things which attract attention, which means we have to understand what the trends are, and then we need to understand how our brand is relevant within those trends. And then number 3 is we need to create platform-specific content. So, yeah. Finally, the marketing manager has that plan. They figured it out. They're starting to create the plan. And then now we gotta, where does the rubber actually hit the road? So now we're talking about progress, one of those personas. See, now we're talking about, it's called state teamwork. We're actually going, it's a slight variation that I created on the state teamwork checklist. So now we're actually talking about personas. What is the commenter actually going to do? What is the trend researcher actually going to do? And I started with the commenter. And so now I'm like a little bit like, comments. I need somebody that can do the comments. I want to hire somebody. I need to automate this process because, like, I've identified the work that needs to be done and I don't have the time or energy to do it myself. So, and I have other things which I need to do. And this is something which actually I need to hire somebody. Can be delegated to somebody. That's the joy of running a business, is finally being clear enough about a job that you can hire somebody to do that job. And then, of course, the problem is, like, how do I train them? I was working with one person and I'm trying to train them on this job. And I said, your only job is we're going to talk like a couple times a week. And I want you to force me to be the commenter and then tell me what to do, as if you're the boss and I'm your worker. And you could hear it in my voice a couple of weeks ago when I was like, is this the right? This is what happens when marketing manager, and I was like ready to let her go. And then I was like, well, I'm the coach, so I have to be the person who helps her and encourages her. But then at the end of the day, I need people who take ownership. And so that's the ownership test. It means that when I'm just being my crazy self, can you influence my behavior? Are you focused enough on the task to get me to do it? And then if you are able to get me to do it, then it means that at some point you are going to be able to become the marketing manager, because it means that you are going to be able to get somebody else to do the task. And first, I need to know if you can both do the task and manage the task. Those are two different things. Anyways, I'm just getting a little bit excited here. So I'm looking for a new person there. I also am looking for a person with, like I'm talking about with SEO, because now I need somebody to go through all of my past, like 35 videos on my French channel and change all of the subtitles, make sure that the subtitles are perfect in English and French, because I realized that YouTube is always using your subtitles in order to understand the context of your video and then suggest it to a new audience. So I got all this work, and now I need to start hiring people so I can coast.